My craft instruction, which have been longed for by many, are finally here. How do I get the super fear? Craft instruction Sabine's top 10. So today you'll learn from me how you could produce really big fear. And maybe you'll find that if you do the opposite, you can even take control of your life. But maybe there are lots and lots of people who are just asking you to create super anxiety. Then you can use my craft instruction as a sniffer dog and your new guard dog. Don't fall for this crap. Stop doing that. And I'm an expert in super anxiety. I'll spare you the details. Otherwise you won't sleep well. I had 2 parents who were war zombies, and they told me right from the start that they didn't want a child. And so I had something like the evil stepmother in the fairy tale, and was her forced property. I could also make a movie about it. How do I get the best nightmares? Luckily I got through that, and now we can get started. My number 1 tip: make yourself defenseless. Oh, there are so many ways to make yourself defenseless. For example, if you're now a member of a group that says, oh, so many people in the world are heartless, and now we're making up for it. Not just through warmth and love, but through limitless love, through limitless goodness. Do you notice that any request that says you are not allowed to draw boundaries kills you, because it's no longer about you, how you cope, whether you have enough strength, and if you follow such instructions, limitless, defenseless, yes, then you are unprotected. And then, for example, you have dreams like, when you are defenseless, that at night a lot of unknown people walk through your apartment or open the doors in your house, or even when you are sitting on the toilet, the door opens, or that you only have a toilet without a door. That's why you can only pee or poop in public. You no longer have any space because you are defenseless. All right, if you're defenseless, your soul isn't stupid. It signals to you through fear that, hey, you're a total fool. Protect yourself. And unfortunately, protection also means that you pay attention. For example, who makes you angry? Who is causing you pain? I think anger and pain can be identified fairly easily, unless you belong to a group that prohibits you from having these feelings. Now comes tip number 2. This is closely related to tip number 1. No border. Yes? So you have no limits. That means you are actually no longer a human being. You are a being without needs. You are a being, yes. Unfortunately, you then become a stupid fool, because no limit means you no longer feel your limit feelings. You feel no fear, no anger, no hatred, no pain, no sadness. You also hold back your tears, because when someone says, I hate you, and you put on your perhaps spiritual or familial permanent grin. So he keeps saying, I hate you, you bitch. You're so unfit for life. And you keep smiling and just keep asking, can I open you a second bowl of soup? Did you enjoy it? Yes, then you have achieved your goal. You have become a being without limits and you no longer feel anything. You are simply a good zombie. No border. What does it produce if you do this program long term? Panic, nightmares, because your soul is trying to speak to you. Hello, 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 you have feelings. Hello, 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 look in your dream. Are you wandering apathetically over icy landscapes? So, for me, the dream series of defenselessness plus limits looked like this. I had lots of turtles and their shells were defective. There were a lot of turtles running across the meadow and they all had holes in their shells. So that's just one of the nicest dreams. You could also dream of walking through burning forests. Now you can say, yes, I do have nightmares, but I already had them as a child. And why do you still have them today? Because you haven't dealt with the topic. Lack of protection, limit. You continue to treat yourself the way the perpetrators once did. Okay, let's not get into the nitty-gritty. And now my tip number 3. How do I get super scared? Never look. So just never ask the question if you feel uncomfortable, uneasy. What is this? Yes, don't pay attention to yourself at all. Pretend you don't exist in your life at all. It's a bit mean. The other person also acts as if you don't exist and as if you have no needs. What's wrong with treating yourself like that? And there are great consolations. So never look if something becomes very, very threatening to you or you can't sleep. So never ask yourself the question in insomnia, what is this? But it distracts you. Yes, watch TV, quiz shows or something like that, and develop fantasies, for example. You are a martyr in superhero, and you could also buy some really great costumes for it on eBay. Get really into it. Don't look at your problem, and you'll get super scared. So you can see that I'm an expert because I followed everything myself. So I mean that seriously, even if it sounds cynical here, I don't want to insult you. But when others have taken you for granted, you unfortunately tend to continue to treat yourself that way because it's always been like that. It's familiar, it feels familiar, like a home. You don't move to a more beautiful country and a more beautiful life. Then my tip number 4, the subscription trap. Turn a really dangerous situation into a story. So it's best to create a sequel story like this by telling yourself that what happened once will always happen to me. So if I was the hated child of my owners who had no idea that a child had feelings and might notice how it was being negotiated. So if that happened to me once, I would make a story out of it. Everyone would treat me like that, and my mind would then provide the reason, because I wasn't worth anything better. Yes, I am death even if my parents wanted me not to be, which means, for example, that I shouldn't live. Yes, because others will want to kill me and not want me. That's what I mean by that. So the subscription trap, generalize something that once happened to you. Could also refer to a bicycle accident or a riding accident or something like that. Make a story out of it. That will always happen to me now, and we can practice it together. Yes, that will happen to you every day. And if you exaggerate the story in that direction, then you have a reality check. It just doesn't happen to you every day, and therefore it won't always happen to you. Then my tip number 5. Avoid exercises, avoid training that reprograms your brain structures pretty quickly, because fear and trauma have changed your brain structures. It's as if yes, they don't have to have been people, but perhaps something in nature. But now, for example, the perpetrator or the tree has now left its boot prints in you forever. And then it becomes clear that the brain is overloaded. In metaphor, it's like you've really broken a bone in your brain, and there are now training programs for a long time. Your brain is biological, so it's not like a sheet metal on a car, but that too can get bulged. I don't know much about it as a cyclist. So you get it bulging, for example, neuromeditation. These are a mixture of brain frequencies. Günter Haftfelder also worked with them with children with learning disabilities, with great success, and included deep hypnotic sentences. Yes, I made pretty good progress. Then you suddenly have your heart and brain full of messages, as if you came from a really protective environment. However, it depends on how long you listen to it. For example, you could start with taxes by constantly reminding yourself of the feeling of the opposite, namely of protection, of being safe, of bathing in love. That would be my mini materialization course, for example. However, avoid the mistakes I'm describing here. I accidentally ordered my super prints, according to a DLRG rescuer. Anything that is too specific will go wrong. So the goal is for you to visualize the energy and thereby train your brain. Of course, it's a bit more initiative than just showering yourself with a Neurost. Or, when you wake up from a super nightmare, you could rewrite the nightmare. Whenever you have a bad story, rewrite it first. For example, all of my turtles have a super healthy, solid shell and a knight's armor around it, and again the question is, what is this? That's just the case, so avoid exercises because then you'll remain a victim forever and nothing will change. And as a result, whenever you don't do anything in the areas of your life, you'll notice that they're really improving. So you get another real, musically speaking, crescendo with a super forte feel. This redirects us to my next favorite point. Don't change anything. So, if you're in a situation that makes you panic, make a story out of it. For example, just keep being nice. And make sure that if nothing has changed in 3 years because of being nice, then you've got it, the success that guaranteed that nothing will change you in the next 3 years. And what do you get from that? A great heightened fear. So stay in groups that, for example, discriminate and hate you. Or stay with a cat even though you are allergic to cats and are already afraid. Help. How about if I go into anaphylactic shock? So keep the animal, and it's best to order cat hair from friends who also have cats and scatter it around the apartment. So you realize you can increase it, but that means you could change it. Or if you're afraid of spiders, buy some really hairy, giant beasts now and take them to bed with you. Or if your mother scares you, money is always more important than you and your needs anyway. So of course life is never about you, but about money. So if, for example, your mother, who scared you to death, lives in a huge, fat house, and you are supposed to look after her now, yes, move in with her. Then you really get super scared and have the guarantee that she will outlive you. So that was our point. Don't change anything. Stay with people you are allergic to, or in groups you don't fit in with. Don't listen to your feelings and buy animals and plants that you are allergic to or are afraid of dying, and get them as close to you as possible. The opposite would of course be, keep your distance, look for animals and plants that you are not allergic to, and be very happy that you may have outlived certain family members. You are worth more than money. Our next point, which I also followed very well in the past, I can highly recommend it to you. And deal a lot with topics that scare you, if possible, every minute. So buy yourself books, the biggest natural disasters, nowadays of course video series about earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, read conspiracy theories about terrorists and who may be powerful perverts. So really take a look at it, and it's best to have friends who say, and I know something else that might happen to children. It's best to create an archive with all the news about disasters. So I used to watch the news from my childhood again when the news was over, like ARD. Even back then, oh, the oil is running out, and yes, the cars won't run anymore. Climate catastrophe, because then you have a really nice Furioso. But definitely don't do the obvious thing. Maybe look out the window and say, oh, the sun is shining today, and just go for a walk with your best friend because there's no action. That's just boring. Such a completely normal life without news or with very little news. I guarantee you it will be so boring that you will lie on the couch and fall asleep. But what is life without a sleep disorder? The kick is missing. The adrenaline is missing. Yes, then you would have to start with an extreme sport. For example, free climbing or bouldering, because then you'll be hanging on the wall, then you'll have to take on levels of difficulty that far exceed your knowledge. So be really impatient. You can do that, stretch your wrist really nicely, and then you're afraid again of what will happen to you next. So you see, you can control this stuff. Of course, I used to really enjoy watching so-called art films with really psychopathic families, and then I had absolute crashes until there was a kind of panic, so much depersonalization experience. But then you also have peace and quiet. Yes, another tip, because we also have to be seriously worried about the future of your fear. So let's talk about that too. And that's directly related to the tip. Just live in the future. You have all the options, because when you look out the window, you see the present. You look at the street, and there aren't as many cars colliding as in a news broadcast. Yes. And you have to travel a lot by train before someone lies down on the tracks. So, everyday life is really boring. You can sometimes be afraid that you'll get coffee all over yourself, or that you'll miss an important file, or that you won't be able to find your car in the parking lot if it's too big, or that you won't be able to get help. I lost my key. But those are the highlights. So, worrying about your own everyday life is boring compared to this possibility. Just live in the future, because no one will bother you. You can now imagine really brilliant downfalls. The Simpsons series also has great suggestions. For example, that UFOs are coming, or that we could perhaps be dominated or eaten by reptilians, or that it turns out that the earth is simply flat and we are the absolute Stone Age people compared to the people outside of the East Ring. So, I mean, even if you surround yourself with spiritual people now and say you've got Christian hell going on now, I'm telling you, the thing continues. Even among spiritual people, you will find really nice, like-minded people who will now give you the new fear of hell. How did I devour these books before? Yeah, what do I do instead? By the way, I have pet turtles with an intact shell, and when I look at them, all doom disappears because they say, look, I'm living in such a way that I'll live to be 200. But you can kill yourself with your fantasies. So living in the present is boring. So avoid the present, avoid looking out the window. That would be too sobering from the cocktail of horror that your imagination can paint in you. Yes, then of course, the normal boring stuff, we've already done that. Just avoid looking out the window and living in the present. And of course, also avoid anything that could relax you. Don't think about the fact that you're watching yourself. In what situation do I really get down? Because then you might come up with the idea of increasing it. So when you realize you're at home, the blanket falls on your head. Yes, then avoid being outside in the city park and feeding the ducklings as much as possible. That would be really boring. Are you at home and get panic attacks because attacks of fear of death and loneliness come back? Yes? Then don't go somewhere where you can talk to very relaxed people. I'm telling you, if you make small talk, just small talk, don't talk about it. Yes, I'm here now and taking the medication, and it doesn't help me either, just small talk. After 5 minutes of small talk, you lose your temper. There is no moment of tension. You have to pour a lot of mocha to wake up again. Yes, so definitely don't pay attention to what makes you boring. Of course, avoid stuffed animals, but now they also help you afterwards because there are now teddy bears that look really mistreated. They already have a black eye patch and another sewn-up second eye and sewn-on scar patterns. If so, you should of course just get her a teddy bear. And you can also increase it with black curtains and things like that, and black bed linen with a skull on it. Yes, and my top 10 tip is overwhelm yourself. Because when you overwhelm yourself, you naturally constantly have a bunch of new fears. Namely, soon I won't be able to do this anymore. And then you don't take yourself into account, your feelings, you're extra hard. And what do you get when you don't pay attention to your feelings? Fear, panic, and you'll get really sick too. So never let peace come to you. Go full-on heroic, self-sacrificing and overextending yourself. So you can, yes, there are so many different ways to overwhelm yourself. So sport is one thing, but extreme sport is better. If you just do stand-up paddling, you could become a kite surfer and then book a course on the North Sea as a beginner. That's what I mean by that. If you like swimming, go to a club that offers weight loss diving. You can get a real swimming pool blackout and maybe also become familiar with resuscitation measures. If you like helping people and are afraid, start with the volunteer fire department. Then you'll have really nice, sometimes catastrophic exercises. And, above all, you'll have colleagues who will tell you about even worse catastrophes. Yes, and to get tough, of course, you're already watching for training purposes. Disaster response videos where things went really wrong. I hope that I've given you a nice life and a nice evening. You now see that you have a great choice for your misfortune. It is always better to actively choose your misfortune again, instead of just being the stupid, passive victim like before. Because if you actively choose your fear now, it feels stronger, and then you'll be a bitch to just say, I'm not in the mood for fear anymore. I'll just choose calm.